welcome to episode 3 of I Can Be Your Friend. I am your host, Lauren, as always, and today I'm joined with Stacey Copas.
Hello.
Am I saying that right?
It is. Copas, you did it really well.
Oh, fantastic.
And I didn't even have to prompt you.
Oh, wonderful. This is your podcast where we catch up, talk entertainment, and give our best advice for anyone who needs it. So, Stacey, you and me, we met a year ago now. We were at a Melbourne Cup function and we were on the same table. We're friends.
We are.
Yeah, we're friends.
We are.
We talk online, but this is probably the second time we've met in person. But I feel bad that I'm saying this, but I didn't know much about you until I stalked you last night before you came on today.
Oh, how funny is that?
So you are an author.
Yes.
You are the CEO of Stacey Copas Resilience.
Yeah. Academy of Resilience.
Yes.
Yes.
And can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So the Academy of Resilience, it sort of evolved. I started out as a keynote speaker, and resilience being the topic that I talk on. And rather than being an academic or a psychologist, I speak about resilience from personal experience of being able to turn, life from the lowest to the lows to turning it into, great success and having great vision for the future.
So difference between resilience coach and life coach. What is there a difference?
The angle of resilience, I say, is a lot more specific than life coach. And I find that most of the work that I do is more with a business context rather than just a life context. But obviously when you're even doing business coaching, there's a lot of life stuff that comes into it. And I just sort of see there's such a blurry line between business and life, and it's impossible to compartmentalize the two. So they definitely come in there. But yeah, I think as far as resilience coach goes, it's about just helping people to have strategies in place so that where you would typically work with a coach might be with setting some goals and putting a plan together in order to achieve those goals. What I do is I actually help you to avoid the setbacks along the way. So often people will go, yeah, I've got a goal, I've got the plan, but then when something doesn't go to plan, they just go, oh, screw that, and they just give up on it. So yeah, being a resilience coach and teaching resilience and speaking about resilience, it's all about giving people the skills so that when something doesn't go to plan, then they're totally prepared for it. And if anything, they can actually look at it as an amazing opportunity. And I look at it that it's just an awesome opportunity to grow and learn rather than, okay, it's how you cope. And I think that's probably a big difference in what I speak about resilience. It's not a coping strategy, it's a growth strategy.
I really wish that I had met you a couple of years ago because you are a keynote speaker. I've dabbled in keynote speaking myself. And a few years ago, before I actually, got my shit together and actually knew what I was talking about, I got asked to go back to my old school. And usually at that point in time, I had only done speeches about cystic fibrosis awareness, transplant awareness, just kind of talk about my life. And my old high school asked me to come in and talk to the whole school. We're talking 1,000 kids about resilience. And I was like, oh, okay, a bit different to what I normally do, but sure, why not? Give it a go. I was really, really sick that week leading up to it. So I had zero preparation whatsoever. That morning at 2:30 a.m., I thought, oh, I don't have a speech. I'm about to talk to 1,000 kids. So I went online, looked up all these TED Talks and stuff, found some really fun, interesting facts about resilience. I'm like, cool, I'll just kind of talk a bit about my life, chuck some facts in, that'll be okay. I got there, oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. So one of the facts that I saw was, I forget the actual statistic, but us being here, when you put the odds of our parents meeting and, the odds of the particular sperm, blah, 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 is 1 in like 400
trillion.
Oh, you know the fact.
I know that
okay,
one.
Because you're a resilience resilience speaker.
No, it's actually one of the speakers one of the people I follow. He uses that all the time.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's like, yeah, really, when you look at it, it's like it is a bloody miracle.
Yeah. Well, I thought, if I just start saying these facts with like determination, these kids are going to believe me. And I started saying it, but I got really confused at that point of like, because I'm really dehydrated. I've just had the worst week. I'm like, yeah, so us being here, with our, the combination of our parents meeting, the fact that, and now this is a Catholic school, and I start talking about sperm, and and I start doing the wave action with my hand and going, like the sperm coming, and then I thought, oh no, there's year 7s here. They don't know about sex ed yet. And it was just so bad. And then I started talking about how I've had a double lung transplant violent. And I grabbed my boobs at one point and I said, oh, like I said, these aren't mine. And then I looked down and go, oh no, these are real. My lungs are not mine. And it was just, it was so cringeworthy. And after that, I finally got my shit together, got speeches actually happening. I thought that can never happen again.
But you know what? There's like, especially the, you know, these aren't mine. I'm like, that is just gold. And like, if you I guess with the right, the right structure around that, like that could be really, that could be really killer.
It but could again, be, just maybe not at a Catholic school that I used to attend.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I get asked to speak for schools a lot, and I've been speaking professionally for 7 years now, and I've spoken, I think, to 5 or 6 groups of people under 18. That's it. There was a few reasons that I did that. Partly, I didn't want to get pigeonholed. You didn't want to get pigeonholed as the school speaker.
Yeah.
Second of all, I find kids really intimidating, and there's no money in it. But also too, I sort of I don't feel that it's our responsibility to go in and teach kids about resilience. I feel that really that's a conversation that needs to come from home, and there's just a lot of expectations.
I feel like resilience is more, you kind of learn it as you go through life. It's not something, I don't think it's something that you can prepare a kid for. I think it's something they're going to learn along the way.
Yeah, I think the problem we've got these days, though, and what I sort of see is the way that a lot of us, depending on, you know, how old we are, like I've just turned 40, so it was one of those things that like I learned it through the being disappointed, fighting with my brother, doing competitive sports, doing all these things along the way.
Because that's something else I had no idea about you. So you are in a wheelchair. I had no idea why you were in a wheelchair because we're so close. But then you put a post on Facebook the other day, and you said it was 28 years ago that because I hadn't thought about it, but you drowned.
Yeah, I was actually in a relative's swimming pool, actually right in this exact suburb.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have any PTSD.
No, I don't have any PTSD. But yeah, it was in this exact suburb, and I was just, cooling off in a relative's backyard pool, and it was somewhere that I'd been before, just an above ground pool. And
how old were you?
I was 12. So I just turned, the end of year 6. So I just turned 12. And I was just, diving in and jumping, getting back out and diving in again and getting yelled at to stop. But, being 12 and invincible as we are, I'm like, not listening to that. And I was being a perfectionist and thought that I was splashing too much as I was diving in. And I stood there for a moment and I thought, if I try and keep my legs straight and keep my feet together as I dive in theory, that would make, a nice splashless entry. So I took a deep breath, dived in, did exactly that, held the legs together, kept them straight. And then it felt like any other dive until I went to try and swim up to the surface like you normally do, and I couldn't move. So I was stuck at the bottom of the pool holding my breath. I didn't feel like anything had gone wrong. I didn't feel any pain, but I just could not move. And my younger brother and a couple of other boys were in the pool with me, and they thought I was just mucking around. So they kind of just ignored me for a bit. And then, I could only hold my breath for so long, and then I just had to breathe in. And so I had breathed in and my lungs filled with water and I blacked out. And so eventually my brother realised that, something had gone seriously wrong, and he pulled me out. So just the kind of things that, so many of us just do all the time.
Did you hit the bottom of the pool or?
Yeah, well, I only sort of knew afterwards, like, after the third hospital and everything like that, after, a while, I actually had a really, a bruise above my right eyebrow. So because of, trying to keep my feet together and go straight, I literally went straight down instead of going out, like straight out into the water. I went down. And so I'd actually hit my forehead on the bottom of the pool, and the impact of such then forced my head back and actually snapped, I broke my neck. So it was just 2 of the bones in my neck pinched some of the spinal cord together, and then that was it.
And so that left you paralysed from the waist down?
Neck. So I'm pretty lucky now because it's like it didn't sever the cord, so there's only partial damage. So
yeah, because you're moving your arms
fine.
and
but I can't move any of my fingers on my right hand. I can't sort of straighten my arms above my head or do a lot of those things. But a lot of people, even like doctors half the time, write on my medical forms that I'm a paraplegic, and I'm like, no, I'm actually a quadriplegic. But I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've got a lot of function. I can feel everything. Like I'm super, super lucky considering, what had happened.
You're sort of like me. We're the luckiest unlucky people.
Yeah, pretty much, isn't it? That's it. We're the luckiest of the unlucky bunch.
Exactly. we're up to the entertainment segment, which is where we talk about what are you listening to, reading, or watching. I talked to you about this just a bit earlier, and you said you don't watch TV.
No, I'm just one of these really weird creatures. No, I don't. I don't watch. Okay, I never watch the news because that just does my head in.
That's depressing.
So I don't. That's one of the things that I cut out of my life a long time ago. So I cut that out. But I generally don't watch TV. I haven't watched a TV series, and I don't remember how long. And everyone keeps going, "Oh, you got to watch this series. You got to watch this series." Like all these Netflix series and all this sort of stuff. And I just know it's a rabbit hole that I'm going to go into, and I'm going to lose a lot of myself and a lot of my life.
You're one of the few people that have not gone down it, and
I haven't.
I praise you for that, because
Yes.
I am way too deep to ever get out.
I do have Homecoming loaded up, ready to watch, which is Julia Roberts. Yeah, so she's working with returned servicemen with PTSD, and so I think there's a 10-episode series in Amazon Prime. So I've got that lined up. So probably over the Christmas break and that sort of time where I probably need to get my head out of work for a little while. I do want to watch that, and I've got a few docos and stuff like that lined up. But I watch a lot of YouTube stuff, and I've got a lot of online programs that I'm like. So I'm always learning. That's my whole thing. So I'm really into. There's some stuff from Kyle Cease. He was an actor and comedian, and now he teaches a lot of personal development. So I've just started watching one of his series called The Limitation Game. And so that's just,
Is that YouTube Red?
No, he's maybe it might be available on YouTube Red, but I've subscribed to his. So he's got some good stuff that's free on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Some of it is.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to give it a look.
Yeah, because his book was amazing. It's called I Hope I Screw This Up, How Falling in Love with Your Fears Can Change the World. And I read that a couple of times last year when I was going through this whole self-love thing. It felt so wanky at the time, this whole self-love thing, but it was so, so, so important. I really like movies that challenge me. I like movies that are going to provoke me in some way. I like the movies that are going to completely gut wrench me and make me hysterically upset and challenge me.
This movie is a doco, because you said you like docos.
I do.
It's called I Am, and it's possibly my favorite documentary of all time. It's directed by Tom Shadyac. And Tom Shadyac, you'd know him as the director of Ace Ventura, Bruce Almighty. Not the type of guy you'd think would do a doco. He actually went through a near-death experience. And while he was laying there, he just wanted to end his life. He was just a complete mess. And he asked himself the question, if I can make one more movie, what would I want it to be? So he goes out with just a tiny crew. It's an indie budget, you can tell. And they go to all these influential people, like from politicians to religious leaders and like just a bit of everyone, and asks them what's wrong with the world and what can we do about it.
Wow.
By the end of the movie, it's what's right with the world. And it sounds wanky, but you watch it and it's fascinating. So they have science proving spirituality. They've got something for everyone. And you walk out of there thinking, wow, like mind blowing. It's really uplifting. And really eye-opening. So yeah, highly recommend I Am by Tom Shadyac.
Oh, definitely.
Actually, one of the quotes from that movie I tried to do in that terrible speech to the school, because I still can't say it right, but by the end of it, they're saying like the particles in the air that we breathe are it's the same air as the dinosaurs breathed, like, because they talk about how we're all connected and all of that. Me trying to explain that to a bunch of kids was just terrible. But and they had this other thing with they put probes on his head, and it was connected to some yogurt, and they put the other end of the probes in the yogurt. They also had a stress machine next to him. They'd ask him different questions, and when he had more stressful questions, the yogurt actually moved from the vibrations from his mind. Fascinating. So we actually can connect to each other through energy, and they're starting to prove that with science. And they link it back to spiritual teachings and such. But now they're saying, well, what they're saying is true. It's fascinating.
Oh, it totally is. And it is. It's because it is all energy. And I know, I did some spiritual development workshops and stuff in the past. And I grew up going, I'm an atheist. And then I went to do meditation, and then we did these amazing things. And we did things like all standing in a circle, not actually touching, but actually consciously projecting like from our hip to the next person's hip. And you could literally feel like a warmth and a spark when you weren't even touching the person.
That's what I did for 3 years in drama school. Yeah,
that's what it is, isn't it? Because it is. It's like everything's energy.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that you can still affect someone without touching them, without, it just by your pure presence. It's amazing. Now it's time for the advice segment. Just saying that if you want to send in some advice, please email me, lauren@giftedlife.com. I think there's a .au. Anyway,
there's a .au.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, there's a .au.
I'll leave the email address in the description if you want to email in. But I did get an email from a lovely lady. Now I always give the people who write in an alias name. Would you like to choose an alias name for a lovely lady?
Shirley.
Shirley, lovely.
Shirley today.
Oh, lovely Shirley. So Shirley wrote in and said, "Hi Lauren, I'd love some advice on how to deal with toxic family members. I feel like I'm guilted into doing things that I don't want to because of them. I'm at the point where I need to distance myself, but I feel like I can't because I want to see my other family. Any advice?" Now with Shirley, I did email her back and said, "Do you have an example of this?" And she said, "Sure. So maybe I'm the one guilting myself because my grandparents are in their 90s and I feel like I have to go to one of my family members' house because if I don't, I won't see them. But that family member is just super mean and hurtful. I really didn't want to come to Thanksgiving because I have been struggling with my white blood count and had a transplant 4 months ago. I was nervous because half of my family are under the age of 16 and 2 people came to Thanksgiving with the flu last year.
Oh no.
Instead of just being okay with my decision, I was constantly asked, am I coming, and texted multiple times on the day of saying no one is sick. When my family gets together, it's about 24 people, which is the most I'd share a meal with since my surgery. She literally told me if someone is sick, just wear your mask. As we both know, you can't eat with a mask on. Was I supposed to just sit there and not eat? So I get there and the first thing she says to me is, "Oh, you've put on weight." As I'm sure you know, with prednisone, I'm very sensitive right now about my weight. I've actually only gained 4 pounds and felt pretty good that day about how I was looking, and wham, she hits me with that. Then another family member who is pregnant commented on how much food was on my plate. It just really isn't cool. My psychiatrist told me I'm not to go, and I still did. I immediately regretted it, obviously. Seeing her tomorrow should be a fun chat. So, obviously, Shirley is from America because they celebrate Thanksgiving. So I guess the next family gathering will be Christmas. Do you have any opinions on this matter?
Yeah, it's interesting because dealing with particularly family members is something that comes up regularly in the work that I do, because one of the key principles of resilience I talk about is the quality of the people that you have around you. It is
the resilience of continually hanging out with your family.
Yeah, well, it's making sure that you do surround yourself with positive people that do lift and energize you, and minimizing your exposure to the people such as Shirley's family that she's dealing with. So, and recognizing that so often the most toxic people in our lives and the most critical people in our lives are those that are the closest to us.
Yeah.
So generally on that, the best advice the advice I give is, like, first of all, the number one, if you can, if it's at all an option, is total avoidance, is don't go there, because if it's not good for your physical or your mental health, then, you know, it comes down to like, well, who really gives a rat's about what they think about it, because you've got to prioritize yourself over and above.
Yeah. And I should
else.
mention to people who aren't familiar with transplant, your immunity is suppressed and you're very susceptible to colds and flus, and they can be quite detrimental to your ongoing health. So it's not like an average person getting a cold or flu. This is actually more serious than that. So I just thought I'd add that in.
Yeah, for sure. It's not like just having a bit of a germ phobia. It's something that really is a serious thing to contend with. So, and you know, even just that piece of that puzzle on its own is enough to sort of go, well, you do have to prioritize yourself and your health.
So maybe, Shirley, you could have, I know for me personally, I like to invite people to my house that I enjoy having over to kind of compensate for when I can't go out or anything. So maybe it's a matter of maybe not doing these family gatherings, but inviting the ones you do like, or having a separate gathering with, you know, your grandparents who are 90, or going to visit them on another another day. And, you know, if they really do care about you, they wouldn't be putting you in this position, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think also too, if you do find that, you know, you do decide to go, and again, it's acknowledging that, you know, you've chosen to go, like that's something, and you're going, okay, you chose to go. And then the other one is actually controlling the conversations. So you can actually control the conversations by just asking them lots of questions and really controlling it, and then but keeping it at a level of, I usually say it sounds really shallow, but sometimes you've got to be shallow with people that are going to dig and try and criticize you and what you're doing. Yeah. So it's talking about, you know, the really mundane stuff, like what's the current affairs, what's on the news, what's the weather, what's the sport, what's the food, you know, what are the kids doing at school, like just keeping it at that level.
People that are going to comment on something so shallow, it's usually a reflection of themselves. I learned this from my psychologist, is when people do put you down, it's usually because they already have a lower thought of themselves, and to keep them up there, if they're threatened by someone, they will put you down lower than them to make them feel more superior.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's one of those things, it's like there's two ways you can have the biggest building in town. You can build the biggest building, or you could tear all the other ones down around you.
Yeah.
And and that's the whole thing, is you find people that do both. You'll find people that will build up everyone around them and build up themselves and do all that sort of stuff, and then you'll find the others that will just pull it down. I almost feel sorry for people in some of those situations, because I'm like, geez, you must be feeling really crappy about yourself if you feel
so
the
what's
need
like
to
a
do
good
that.
comeback? So if she is, you know, sitting there and someone says, oh, you've put a lot on your plate, like what do you say to that? Be like, well, I don't know what a good comeback is. Like, I
just turn around and go, yeah, it all looks so good, why haven't you?
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah, it can be that. I guess it depends on
not let it affect you. Like, know that these people, it might seem like a personal attack, and I guess it is to some degree, but don't make it a personal attack for yourself.
It's having to protect your energy, and it's being really conscious of what you let through your defenses. And sometimes you just have to do that. And it's like, I know personally, like my family are probably the most critical people in my life.
Yeah.
So I know that if there's times where I'm really excited about something that's happened in my life, and I go home and want to say, oh wow, this is amazing, I had this amazing opportunity, this went really well, and it's like they don't even break eye contact with the TV. And it's like, so I don't share that with them anymore. It's one of those things. But again, as you said, on the flip side, it's having to make sure that you do build up a support group around you of positive people, of equally, if not more positive, to actually counter their negative.
Yeah. And like, okay, so I think what we're saying is don't go if you can help it. But if you do have to go, maybe is there a couple of people there that you do trust and can confide in and say, look, I feel uncomfortable with this person because of X, Y, and Z. During the day, can we kind of just stick together a little bit, because otherwise I just feel a bit personally attacked when I'm by myself. Like, maybe that's a way of going about it, finding that person. You know, I get really angry at people because I still am to a point, a people pleaser. And the good old, someone has a cold issue. I don't know why it's still an issue, but it just is. People can't get their head around it. For me, always growing up, a cold could mean a 2-week stint in hospital. It could mean permanent damage. Right now, a cold, worst case scenario, could kill me. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, that is the worst case scenario. And yet there are still people who know that, but for some reason, put it in the back of their mind because they want to feel comfortable enough to not miss out or to be part of whatever's going on. And, you know, they're not the type of people you want to be around. And I'm just ranting. There is no answer to this, just that people are shit sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good answer. People are shit sometimes. and again, I think, as you said, it may not even, you know, depending on how comfortable she feels with the people in the room, you know, maybe having that conversation with the, you know, because generally in a room of that size, there's going to be some allies.
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
going to be some people in that room that
are going to get it, yeah.
That also don't want to be there because of the negativity of the other people. So it's, again, seek them out. It may not need a conversation to say that, you know, that you sort of do feel a bit uncomfortable. It may be that you actually have a debrief and a laugh about it with these people afterwards as well, going, oh my God, can you believe they did this?
Yeah.
But I think just seek those people out. And even sometimes it can be just, you know, go and put in an appearance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pop in, have lunch with them, and then get the hell out of there.
It's all well and good if people say, say, oh, but no one's sick. But if you don't feel comfortable, don't put yourself in that position.
It's not worth taking the risk. And it's even something similar, like, you and I both can't eat gluten. And so that's something that I know now I am so strict on, because somebody will say, oh, but it's, I can take this off it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but it's contaminated with it. And it's like, sometimes it is a level of ignorance, and sometimes they mean well.
Oh, and
but it's
generally people do mean well.
They're trying, but they just don't get the gravity of the situation. They don't realise how serious it is.
But the best thing that I ever learnt was, just because I say no, just because I do things my own way, doesn't mean I'm not polite. Because I used to think polite was appeasing everyone, but that's actually not what a polite is. Yeah, you can still be assertive. You can still set the ground rules. You can still speak up for yourself. And that doesn't mean that you are not nice. It just means that you are, you're assertive. You're still polite.
The art of diplomacy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's also just recognising that, again, if you don't, then you're the person that's going to suffer for it. And there was something that I read, and I actually put this in my book because it just so resonated with me. It was this quote that says, leaving someone behind doesn't mean that you hate them. It means that you love yourself. And so it's recognizing that was, for me, that was such a game changer.
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that it's not by having this conversation with them, if you do choose that, if by not going, it doesn't mean that you hate them.
Yeah.
It just means that you love yourself more.
Yeah. So conclusion, don't go. But if you do, get some allies and speak up for yourself.
Yeah, and minimise the time you're there.
Yeah, just a little appearance. Eat the food and go.
Exactly. So, awesome question.
Now, you brought up your book. I completely forgot to talk about this in our book segment. I have not read it.
That's right. I brought one for you. So
Did you really?
I've left one. I've got one with me so that you can read. So,
oh my gosh! Yay!
Yay! Yes.
I am such a good friend and support you. And I have not read your book because so many people always go, "Oh, I want to write a book," but to actually write one, such an achievement.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes I sort of pinch myself and go, I still can't believe I did that.
And your book is called
How to Be Resilient.
Oh, yep. Of course it is.
The blueprint for getting results when things don't go to plan, which, let's just face it, nothing goes to plan.
Oh, God, no.
And where's the fun in that anyway?
I don't know. There'd be some nice.
I guess it'd be novel, wouldn't it?
I know. If something actually went to plan, that would be amazing. That'll be the day. So I do have another person that wrote in.
Okay.
I just got to get him up. Oh, that's what she said.
Oh, that's what's up. That's lucky man.
I know. So what should we call this fine young man?
Stanley.
Oh, I love it.
Stanley.
So Stanley wrote in and said, I'm really into this girl. We have gone on a few dates and we have great chemistry, but I'm afraid of hurting her. I know my parents won't accept her because of my culture, in brackets, she is white Australian, and they expect me to marry someone from our own culture. I really, really like her, but don't want to get too involved when I know it will never work out. What should I do? I feel like we're biting more off than we can chew here, but so this is a tough one because Stanley didn't mention what culture he's from. I'm assuming an ethnic background.
Yeah, it sounds that way. Yep.
Because I actually have a friend from an ethnic background, sort of similar in that he's expected to marry someone within the same culture. Actually, I've got Christian friends who will only marry other Christians or from the same denomination of church. So not uncommon.
You can't help who you fall in love with. That's the thing, isn't it? I guess from my perspective, I've always come from the viewpoint is just because it's always been that way, it doesn't always have to continue to be that way.
Yeah, like Stanley, have you sat down and had a talk with your parents? Is this something you just assume that they want from you and have already put in your head, well, that's the way it's going to be? Or have you told your parents, you could say, look, if I do date someone that's not from our culture, is that going to be a problem because X, Y, and Z?
I certainly think it's around open communication, and it's about doing that. And even if it's having a look at, even just with other relationships that are, non-romantic relationships, does Stanley have, a lot of friends and stuff like that are from different cultures, and how that sort of is accepted in the family as well. And I think just recognising that over time things are always going to evolve.
Yeah.
And perhaps it is managing those expectations, and it might be that there might be some short-term discomfort. There might be some short-term discomfort. But again, I think it comes down to, that is the communication. It's having that conversation around, that you love your parents, you love the way and you appreciate and you're grateful for the way you've been brought up, and you recognise and are appreciative of the traditions that they've come from as well.
And maybe have you had this conversation with the girl you're dating? Like, does she know the expectations of dating you? Like, or have you kind of covered that up? Or like maybe she's a bit ignorant as to what the expectations are of her. Like maybe look, I'm just talking out of absolute ignorance here. I have no idea. But do you have to go to church once a week? Like, would she be expected to go with you? Or like, I'm not sure, but what are the differences of dating someone from different culture? Like, would she be able to assimilate into that? Like, would you be able to come to a compromise, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess it's, and I know that, someone that I dated was, a Mandarin speaker. So I started learning basic Mandarin. But I think also too that there can be some great opportunities here as well. There's some really great opportunities to, again, learn about each other's culture, and knowing that it is a two-way street. And I agree with you. It's about having that conversation with the girl that he's dating as well, and just to sort of go, well, what does she see as well for a future? And also too, is it jumping the gun a bit too? Like,
maybe you just need to
just go with it for a while and see where it goes, rather than,
because it might fizzle out and it might not end up in anything, and then you just
it could be creating something bigger than what it is at this point.
Yeah, I've dated someone that my parents weren't a fan of, and I didn't give him up but I also didn't disrespect my parents either. It was just finding that balance. And even though it didn't work out, thank goodness it didn't, but you live and you learn. But I'm glad I had that experience, and I'm glad I figured that out on my own.
Yeah, so I think just, communicate with it, and also, working out what you want. I think what it comes down to these days is what you want, and knowing that just by following what you want, you're not disrespecting or being disloyal either.
I really hope he is from Indian descent, because if you had an Indian, this is going to turn so racist, but if you had an Indian family and then you had a white Australian family, could you imagine the barbecues? They would be delicious. We're talking like sausage curry. That's what I'm thinking when you combine the two, sausage curry. Is that racist?
I don't know. I think foods
Am I racist?
I think foods are just the most amazing part of different cultures anyway.
Same. So. Have you ever been accidentally racist?
Probably. I may have been accidentally racist and not even known it. Actually, what came up actually the other day, I was in a workshop, and that's what someone said. Is it being racist now to say Chinese whispers, or that someone's an Indian giver?
Oh my gosh. There's too many things.
And it's like, because we were talking about, Chinese whispers in the context of, chains of communication.
Yeah, I used to love playing that as a kid.
Exactly. And there was a lady who in the workshop who was Chinese, and she goes, no, I don't find it racist. But again, it's one of those things.
But I think people say it's how the person perceives it that you're saying it to, whether it is or not.
It's so, and I find it's really fascinating, because I have been reading some interesting posts from people in the context of online dating. And it was a couple of Indigenous women that actually wrote this post, and they were actually saying about some of the really quite racist comments they were getting from guys dating that almost saw them as some exotic accessory.
Oh. Are there guys out there who have something with women in wheelchairs? Is that a thing?
Okay, this is a whole Pandora's box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think this is really interesting, and it's quite fascinating. I didn't know that there was until I had a couple of instances over the years where I'd get an influx of friend requests from guys I didn't know on Facebook. And then when I went and had a look at their mutual friends, I didn't see any mutual friends, but I saw they were friends with a whole stack of women in wheelchairs. And I'm like, okay, this is a little bit weird. So then what I did was I went and looked at what groups they were in. And then I saw that they were in these groups for people called devotees. So I went and did a Google on what a devotee was. And a devotee is somebody that has a sexual attraction or a fixation on somebody with a specific disability.
What?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if there is one with crappy lungs. Like there's a...
Maybe.
because that would be interesting.
And what's really fascinating about it, because I got completely creeped out by it. So I have this little bit of a phobia. Because what I'm concerned about is what I found on some of these groups is that in order to join some of these groups, they had to actually submit photos of people. And so I was like, oh my God, how many people have swiped maybe my public photos on Facebook and then are some of my public photos on Facebook in some of these creepy devotee groups. So I got really creeped out about it. And as I said, I had no idea that this existed. And then what I found was I ended up finding some articles about it. And there's actually some people who are people with disability who are like, why the hell would I care if someone's a disability? It's like, in their eyes, I'm Ryan Reynolds. And it's like, and he's like, I get laid more. And I'm like, but isn't that weird? And so, and I personally have found, like, going back over some previous experiences I've had, I think it's highly possible that I may have had relationships with people who may have been devotees.
Wow.
Because of...
Do they know that they are, or they just...
Some people do. I actually had a message from a guy on Facebook who was very open, and he actually said to me in this message, he goes, I know you're probably just going to delete this and think that I'm really rude or weird or anything like this. But he goes, look, I am a devotee for women with spinal cord injury.
So specific.
So it was so specific. And so he actually asked.
Okay, I need to Google while we're
here. Yeah, so Lauren's just got the phone out to do some Googling on this because what was totally creepy was some of these devotee groups that I found were like, the one that's really popular is for amputees. And yeah, and there was even people that were saying, oh my, like I would move across the world to be a devotee, and they would call people, what did they call them? A torso, like double amputees.
I'm trying to find out if there's a devotee for lung disease.
There might be one that's even just for people that have got chronic illness.
Oh,
because,
okay.
Yeah. So
would it still be a devotee?
Yeah, because it would be a very specific thing. There's actually some people that are making a lot of money out of it.
Because what?
Seriously, there is people that sell...
Are there like escorts?
Yeah, that. And then there's some people that I've seen, like women who have like a spinal cord injury or, are paralyzed, actually sell videos of themselves like getting themselves in and out of bed or getting dressed and doing all this really weird stuff. So this could be this is like a whole episode in itself, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
So what have you found on your Googling?
Okay, I've put devotee chronic illness.
Yeah.
And there is nothing. I'm a little bit sad.
And that was also something that I was really concerned about when I was online dating, because up until my most recent foray into internet dating, I never put my full-length photos on because I was worried that I was going to attract people like that. And that really concerned me. But now I know my filter. I think my filter is really good to be able to determine if someone is...
Well, see, it's kind of good with me because, that's one of the benefits in some regards that it's an invisible illness, so I don't have to disclose it until later. In saying that, I'm sure there's been people who have been fascinated with my specific condition. I think I've dated one. You know when you think back and you're like, oh, yeah, you were highly interested in that.
Highly interested. And also, too, I think that they were over the top wanting to help you. That was something that I found.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I've definitely dated one then.
Yeah. They just, I think there's an element of being needed, on a far greater level than in any other relationship.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah, because I actually had in one previous relationship, I had someone say to me, because I ended up getting diagnosed with sleep apnea.
You a CPAP user?
Yes.
Me too.
Oh God, it changed my life. I don't
have apnea, but my lungs are shit,
yeah,
so I wear a CPAP.
You use it. Yeah, so I use it all the time.
It's very sexy.
And that was the whole thing. This particular...
Oh, and I should just quickly say CPAP is a constant flow of air that you wear a mask.
Constant positive airway pressure, isn't it?
Yes.
Something
so
like
when you just wear a mask to bed and so it keeps your airways open at night. Sorry,
so that changed my life. But yeah, it was the person that I was with at the time when I first got that, he says, oh, it's like sleeping with friggin' Darth Vader.
Oh, well, did you go, well, fuck off?
Yeah, I did. And I said to him, yeah, but if I don't use this, then I won't be able to work. And he said, that's okay, I'll look after you.
Oh, so, red flag.
And again, you didn't, like, in hindsight now, like that was massive devotee behaviour.
I know, and it's also hard as I guess, someone like in our position, are they just being nice or do they enjoy this?
Exactly. And I think this is something that's really interesting. Like, geez, I think there's a whole new podcast in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a whole new podcast.
I feel like this is just going to go for overtime, so it's fine.
That's right. We can just edit this into a whole extra, a different episode, I think.
It's a, what do you call it? A special. Because I look at myself and I'm like, why would anyone be attracted to me? Like,
because you're hot.
I smell good.
You're hot and you're funny and you're awesome.
But I have those moments where I'm like,
we all do.
Yeah, but like, I can't get off the lounge some days. I'm not able to work. I know
the perfect guy for you.
Really?
A gamer.
Oh my gosh. I'm not a games person, but I have discovered Candy Crush. I'm up to like a level 1000 and something.
Oh, I had to go cold turkey on Bejeweled Blitz about 18 months ago. I can't play any of them. Like, I'm a crack. Like, I can give up smoking and alcohol and everything way easier than I could give up playing those games.
I have an addictive personality, so if I start something, I have this like kind of this fire in me that's like, I've got to finish it. It's like the packet of chips.
Oh yeah.
I can't just have some of it. I'm going to eat all of it. I'm a finisher.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a starter. And I'm great at starting stuff, but there's certain things like food there is that. But yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it, when you start to question a lot of that stuff, and there is extra things that do come into play for us when we are dating and we are doing things like that, because there are considerations there, and it, even like for me personally, like I've got my license but I don't drive.
Yeah.
So there's this little things about, where do you meet and where do you do all this sort of stuff, and then there is an element of, I don't feel like I'm a particularly vulnerable or weak person, but then there are times where you do need to be a little bit more sensible about it, because there are some situations that would be far more difficult for you to get out of. And as I said, I do feel that I've got a bit of my radar for that is a hell of a lot more tuned than it has been in the past. So yeah, and I've just definitely found, like, even though I did, put my full length photos on dating profiles and I did use it for a while, I think there was only probably one person that messaged out of, I don't know, I think online dating was really terrible for me because I'm so non-judgmental of people and I give everyone a go. So I end up with hundreds of messages and hundreds of matches on the go, and then I just feel really bad about not replying to people.
Yeah. I'm sure he didn't sedate that tiger to have the photo with him. He's fine.
My God, no, that's what I mean. There's so many of them. Or it's like, do you really have to go into the disabled toilet and to take your flexi gym, shirtless gym shots?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so there's all of those sort of things, but it is interesting.
One of the biggest things that it's a push at the moment with disability parking, and you just reminded me when you said that, because I've obviously been a kind of campaigner of not all disabilities are visible. Have you had moments where you have parked in a disability spot and you have copped it from other people?
Absolutely.
Even though you are visibly...
Yeah, I vividly remember one time being at the local shopping centre with one of my friends, two women in our 20s, like late 20s, and we were in a BMW, and we pulled into a disability spot, and some guy started abusing us before we got out of the car about not parking in that spot. And it's like, even when my friend goes, we've got a wheelchair in the boot, blah, 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 like this guy just ripped shreds off us. And it's like, again, there's these assumptions.
So intimidating.
Like, yeah, and so for me, I feel in a way that I'm fortunate because like my disability is very obvious, and having done a lot of work on diversity and inclusion education in the past, I sort of feel that that's where there's a lot more work that needs to be done as far as awareness and that sort of stuff for people, because there is, we can't judge.
No,
we
and
can't
then
judge
a lot
by
of
someone
people who are the good Samaritan, I'm saying that in inverted commas.
Air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes. Good Samaritan, they're saying, because we want it to be for the people who actually need it. And it's like, yes, but if there is a pass there,
yes,
that is someone who needs it. So,
exactly.
And you don't have the right. If they didn't have a pass,
that's a different story.
Go for your life.
It's a different story.
Yeah. Well, thank you so so much for coming on.
Oh, that was fun. I mean, like, I think we better wrap up.
I know we've definitely gone way over
point.
time. I'll be editing this for sure.
Yeah, we might just make it into a couple of things.
I know we'll just have to divide it up into a few different podcasts. But
yes.
But no, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we definitely are friends, like really close friends now. But one thing before we go, what is your best life advice that you can give our listeners? And when I say listeners, I mean it's probably just my mum listening. But
well, in this immediate moment,
yeah. So yeah, what is your best life advice before we go?
I think in any given situation, I think when you get to a point where everything just feels like that it's gone to crap, or everything's overwhelming, or you feel that you're in a situation that's hopeless, or you're really, really unhappy with, it's just actually stopping and be grateful for that moment. And the line that I use this all the time, like yesterday specifically, I was pushing back to the railway station, and I got a bit cramped up, and then I don't know if I was a little bit anxious or whatever it was. I found the nearest pole. I leant against this pole in the middle of a busy, like, peak hour.
Started dancing.
And I stopped and I went, thank you to myself. Thank you for the opportunity to be who I am, where I am, with what I have at this moment in time. And I just think that line is just so powerful and I use it every day. It's the last thing I say to myself before I go to sleep every night.
And that is so good.
I think it just changes everything.
Yeah, I need to do that because sometimes I'm like, this is shit. Thanks, I guess, for some of the things I have.
But of course, we've got to have, and it's important to have that, this is shit, and then back it up with the,
yeah, exactly.
We've got to have that little bit of release, because if we keep squashing stuff down, then it's going to keep bubbling up. So let it out and then just go, look, you know what? I'm really grateful, even though it's shit right now.
Actually really good. And I think we do definitely underestimate the power of how we talk to ourselves. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next time.